Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining today. My name is Josh Giles, and I'm the product manager overseeing trivia at AMI, coming to you from a very chilly Austin, Texas. Only 107 degrees today is the high, so we're really lucking out down here. What I'm going to do is take you through a presentation. I'd like to keep things moving, so in order to do that, I will be answering all questions at the end. If you have any questions, please drop them in the Q&A box, and I'll answer them then. If by some chance I don't make it through all the questions, I will personally see to it that a sales manager will follow up with you and answer your question as soon as possible. Also, we'll be giving away a free trivia box at the end of the webinar, so make sure you stick around for that. So I know many of you are familiar with the game, but I also know we have quite a few first-timers on here, and so I'd like to start with a quick rundown of how the game works. The game is a little over 10 years old, but because it's not our primary product, it has not been widely marketed. The decision was made earlier this year to grow the product, and I am the company's first dedicated trivia hire, which underscores our dedication to this product moving forward. In order to play the game, players can download the app and be in the game in just a matter of moments. If you're an AMI Music app user, your login credentials will work with the Tap TV app. Right now, they are separate apps. So if you already have an AMI username and password for the Music app, you can use that same username and password just to get into the Tap TV Trivia app. Each game is 20 minutes long, and games run continuously for as long as you have the system turned on for. Questions are multiple choice, and scoring is based on speed. And I'll show you exactly what all that looks like in just a little bit. In each game, you're directly competing against those playing around you in the venue. But at the game end, we do show national scores and rankings, so you can see how you stacked up against players playing from around the country. We also, at the end of the game, show location rankings, so you can see how your venue, the venue that you're playing in, did compared to other venues that are also playing the game. Install is easy, and frankly, using the term install is probably a bit of an overstatement. All you have to do is plug the box into a power outlet, plug it into the internet, and then into a television with an HDMI cable, and you're good to go. You can use a matrix or splitter to show on multiple screens. This is a common practice. You can also have multiple trivia boxes running in a venue, all playing the same game at the same time. This is also a practice we see fairly often. The use case for this would be if just due to the layout of the bar, running a large amount of Cat5 cable or a very long HDMI cable is either too difficult or just too expensive. In that scenario, you could purchase a second box and set that box up and have people on one side of the bar playing the exact same game as people on the other side of the bar. The game can and will run all day without having to turn it on and off, even if you switch the inputs on the television. In fact, this also is a common practice. In that case, the game would just run in the background. The reason why people choose to do this is because if you switch an input to put on a sporting event or something on the television that people want to watch, or if you want to put on music videos, when you're done doing that and you want to move back to trivia, you could switch the input back to trivia and show people a live game that's already begun, and you don't have to worry about having to boot anything up. There is no audio associated with the game. You can play the jukebox at the same time as having people play trivia. You can also have sound on for a sporting event while people are playing trivia. None of those have any impact on gameplay. The structure of a game is pretty straightforward. Each game is split into two halves of 6 questions each. So that's 12 questions total for a game. There is a mid-game break. During that break, players will see any ads you've created or uploaded using our ad manager tool. You would see as many as 3 ad manager ads during that mid-game break, and that mid-game break is about 2 minutes long. During this break, they'll also see promos and tips related to the trivia game, and you'll see an example of one of those in just a moment. If you've set up a tournament or scheduled a tournament to run in the game, during this break, you would also see promos for that tournament, and I'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. Once we get through the mid-game break, we're back into the game with 6 questions. During the first and second half of the game, in addition to questions, we're showing scores, how people scored on each question. We're also showing the standings, where people are ranking against one another at that point in the game so far. Once the game ends, we'll show final scores. This is where we show the national rankings. It's where we show the local bar performance, as I mentioned earlier. And then we would show more ad manager ads and trivia promos until the next game begins. This break is a little bit longer. It's about 3 minutes long. And with the longer break, you would see as many as 6 ad manager ads if you've uploaded or created that many. So now I'd like to show you what a game actually looks like. And in the interest of time, I'm just going to show a short clip here. What I'm going to show you is a clip from our general trivia game. In our universe, general trivia is what we refer to as just our main overall trivia game. In this game, you might see sports questions, pop culture questions, history questions, science questions. This game pulls from all of our different categories, and I will talk about the categories in just a few slides. Each game has a logo or icon, and that's what you're looking at here. This is the general trivia logo. So we start every game with a ready, set, go. What we're looking at here is question number 1. First, the question appears by itself, and it appears for a few seconds so everyone has a chance to read it. Then you'll see the question again with 4 answer choices. As the timer begins to tick down, so do the amount of points that you receive for a correct answer. When the timer reaches each one of the dots in the black bar, a wrong answer will disappear. Once the right answer is revealed, we show it along with a factoid. A factoid is a little bit of added context or bonus trivia about the answer. Once the right answer, after the question, the results are shown in a game with players, and this is just an example of a game that I have set up right now that currently has no players in it. In a game with players, join now would be replaced with my username and the username of anyone else playing the game, and it would show how many points I received and the other players received on that particular question. You'll see a QR code a lot during the game. It appears on the screen quite often. This is just an easy way for those watching the game to join quickly. Scanning that QR code would bring you right to a spot where you could download our app and be in a game again in just a matter of moments. At the end of the 6th question, once point totals for that question have been revealed and the standings are shown, we move into the break. This time is filled with ads that you've created or uploaded in Ad Manager. This is an example of an Ad Manager ad that was created using one of our templates. We have a few thousand templates to choose from. The sequence we've created will alternate between ads like that one and ads like this one. This is one of the promotional trivia screens that I mentioned earlier that you might see. We've also been playing around with a countdown timer to let players know how much time they have before the game resumes. That's one of the features we are testing currently in our beta. And I will talk a little bit more about that and some of the other things that we're working on a little bit later. When the game ends, after the 12th question, we roll into a little bit of housekeeping before the 3-minute game break starts. So what I'm about to show you here, these next few screens, these are not part of the 3-minute countdown. The 3-minute countdown starts once we move into the ads and promos. First, we show how all players fared in the game nationally. What you might see on that first screen is Josh finished in 45th place nationally. Jill finished in 27th place nationally, so on and so forth. On the next screen, where I've paused it right here, you would see what the national top 20 looks like. So these are the game that I sort of took a screen grab of. These are the players who scored the best out of everyone playing nationally. We show the top 20. Then, as always, we thank everyone for playing. We then congratulate the top location. So in this particular game, Red Mountain Tap House accumulated the most points out of any location playing the game. And then we show the rankings among the locations. And in this particular game, we only had 2 locations logged in. This one was recorded pretty early in the morning. So you'll notice in the top corner of the screen, it says that the 70s trivia game is up next. This always appears on screens like this, so you can see which game is up next in the schedule. Then at that point, the 3-minute game break begins, again, showing promo screens like this, counting down, and also showing any additional ads you've created using the Ad Manager template. Just a reminder, if you have any questions about anything you see, please put the question in the Q&A box, and I will be sure to answer it when we get to the end. So now I'd like to quickly show you what all of this looks like from inside the app. And what I've done is essentially recorded a game being played on my phone, so you can see exactly what that looks like. It is a very simple design. The app essentially functions just like a video game controller. You do need to see the screen in order to play. In the current design of the app, there are no questions and no answers. So if you're not looking at the trivia screen in the bar, you would not be able to, you would not know what the question was, and you would not know what your answer choices are. So go ahead and play this. As you can see, you can change your selections until you're locked in. You'll also see that the point total up top is dropping. This coincides with the timer on the game screen. The more time you wait to lock in your answer, the less points you're going to receive. And in this particular case, I waited to the last second to land on choice D, and I earned 146 points for answering that. So this is a little bit of a sneak peek of what the app might look like later this year. And this is subject to change. Right now, these are just concepts that we're still working on, but I wanted to share kind of where we're at. The Tap TV trivia app will be merged with the AMI Music app. You can see on the bottom how you would move between the different functions. You've got the music tab first, then you've got trivia. You've got an arcade tab. If you have arcade games or pool tables in your location that utilize Amusement Connect, you would be able to make selections there in this app as well. And of course, there's a tab to be able to add funds. As far as trivia is concerned, this design gives you easier access to the upcoming trivia schedule, which you can see at the top there. You can also see which game you're playing currently, and you also have easier access to top player scores without having to wait until the end of the game. This idea, putting all these different components into the same app, keeps jukebox users and music players in the music app while playing trivia. We want everyone in the app at the same time. We're confident that this will have a positive impact on revenue. So now let's talk a little bit about the types of questions and topics we cover in the game. And we refer to these as games, categories. There's quite a bit of different nomenclature you can use. But essentially, when you hear me say games or categories, I'm referring to the different topics of questions that we cover. We currently have 18 games available. We have a 70s, 80s, and 90s game. We have several different sports categories. We have music, we have movies, we have TV, travel, transportation, food. We've listed on the screen here, you can see a brief description of them, as well as what that game's logo or icon looks like. Apologies for the small font. I wanted to make sure I fit everything up on the screen here. Later this year, we are going to be releasing a 60s trivia game. This is questions all about the decade of the 60s. In all of our conversations over the last year or so, this has probably been the most requested edition. We've gotten quite a few requests for a 60s game. That's why we decided to go with that game first. Following behind that will be a 2000s game. Currently, we have 7 schedules to choose from. These schedules consider the tastes and demographics of our current subscribers and their feedback. We're always listening to what people have to say. We're always trying to learn and make sure that we're accommodating our players as much as possible. That's why we have some schedules that are very heavy with sports. We have a schedule that has no sports at all. We have a schedule that changes games every 20 minutes. We have another schedule that changes game every hour because people want to play, a few more questions per game before moving on to the next one. We're currently adding more schedules, and we'll continue to do that as our subscriber base grows and as we continue to learn more about the tastes and tendencies and demographics of the people who are playing the game. Eventually, we will offer more control over schedules, including customized schedules, and the ability to dictate which categories are playing at certain times of day. The idea here is we want to be able to let you better align with your traffic. What I mean by that is, maybe you know that you've got a bunch of regulars coming in on a Monday night at 6 p.m. who really like 90s trivia. We want to make sure that you have the ability to choose and make sure that 90s trivia is playing when those people are in the bar. And that is something that'll happen sometime next year. We've also kicked off a big overhaul of our content. We're currently in the process of fact-checking questions to make sure they're still accurate. This is especially important in sports. As we all know, every year, different teams win championships. Every year, records are broken, players retire. The landscape of sports changes year over year, and therefore, sports questions tend to become more out of date more quickly than anything else. We're also removing old questions and outdated questions that are just a little too complicated to edit. We're also removing questions that are just frankly too difficult. We hear from people that sometimes questions are just really, really too hard. We also have access to data. We can see that people are constantly answering this question incorrectly, and the response rate or the correct answer rate is very low for that question. And these are all things that we're going to take into account when deciding which questions to keep active and which questions to sort of retire. We also add questions every month. We try to function a bit like a nightclub. When we remove a bunch of questions, we try to add in a commensurate number of questions. Apologies here while I take a drink of water. So in addition to choosing your game schedule, the game currently also has a tournament function that lets you set up tournaments in advance. A tournament game, in terms of the gameplay, functions the same as a regular game. You're answering the same number of questions every 20 minutes. The questions come from the same pool. But what setting up a tournament lets you do is publicize and promote a specific time period in advance to increase participation. In the tournament module, when you set it up, you can list out any prizes that you'd like to give away. All those details, the start time, end time of the tournament, what prizes are being given out, those would all appear in on-screen promos during the game breaks that I walked you through earlier. Tournaments can be as short as one game, which is 20 minutes, or as long as you want. We have some operators that set up tournaments that last several days. What we're seeing on our end is that the average tournament is probably about 2 hours, which would be essentially 6 different games, or 6 games of the same, but essentially 6 games for a total of 72 questions. You can also include any locations in your network in tournaments. So it doesn't need to be just a tournament at one location. You can have 3 or 4 locations all playing in the same tournament. So those players would be playing against each other in different locations at the same time. And then the winner could receive their prize at whatever location they're playing at. We are working to expand the tournament function to allow you to do more. We have heard a lot of feedback about different things that people would like to see in the tournaments. We've got some great ideas. This is all stuff that's on the roadmap and will also be coming sometime next year. And we're excited about what the tournament function can look like in the future, because we know it's something that people are definitely asking about. And I just want to mention another reminder: if you do have questions, to put them in the Q&A box, and I'll address those at the end. So now I'd like to share a quick success story with you, sort of as a segue from talking about tournaments. One of our operators in the Pacific Northwest, Digital Music Systems, or DMS for short, and I believe they're on the call today, has created a tournament network that shows just how powerful our game can be. Currently, quite a few locations on this operator's route participate in this round robin tournament that lasts for 7 weeks and then starts up again and just happens throughout the year. Venues are placed in different divisions. Each week, matchups are posted in a social media group. And what you're looking at here are some screenshots that I've taken from the social media group. Venues compete against one another. So if you were to walk into one of these venues on a Tuesday night and watch them playing this tournament, you would see a lot of teamwork and a lot of collaboration. Everyone is working together to make sure that everyone in the bar is answering the right answers, and it's a cumulative score at the end of the night that dictates a winner. So the more people that answer the question correctly and answer the question correctly as quickly as possible, the better chance you have of having a high score and beating the location that you're playing. These venues compete for bragging rights and a trophy. No prizes are given, and the trophy is provided by the operator. I had a chance to visit a few of these locations on a tournament night back in June, and frankly, I had a ton of fun. The people were very friendly and great. It is a very inspired and competitive group. They work together, they cheer, and they celebrate each other, and they take it seriously. They really want to win. Right now, there are approximately 30 locations that participate in this tournament. On Wednesday morning in the social media group, uh, standings and updates are given based on the previous night's results. And what you're looking at here is another screenshot of what that screen looks like. I will say the rivalries in this tournament are real. There's lots of lighthearted and fun trash talking. People, take it seriously and celebrate and give other locations a hard time in the chat and comments and social media. The people who play in these tournaments, if at all possible, never miss a tournament night. It's kind of appointment participation for them. One interesting sort of byproduct of the tournament that I learned, just frankly by speaking to some of these individuals, and also I've seen notes and comments about this in the social media group. A lot of people on off nights will get in the car and drive to some of the other locations on this list because they've never been there before and they never heard of that bar, and they want to see what the scene is like, and they want to see what the vibe is like at that bar that they consider a big rival, or let's go check out this bar that beats us all the time, or let's go check out the bar that we beat last week. And so, what we're hearing from a lot of these location owners is that they're seeing additional business on non-trivia nights that are a product of the trivia tournament. Essentially, what DMS has done is dropped an anchor in all these locations. I think that certainly the players in the bar would be upset if these locations opted to no longer subscribe to our trivia game. And now DMS has established a relationship with a lot of these locations that has led to these locations getting other equipment for the location. And so what you're looking at here, this is a photo that I took, so apologies for the non-professional grade photo quality. These are people playing the tournament at one of the locations that I stopped in. This is a place called Meeker Street Bar and Grill. And this is a testimonial from the owner of that bar. What I've done is, feel free to read the entire testimony. I'll keep it up on the screen for a moment, but I've highlighted in yellow what I consider, as far as I'm concerned, the very important parts. Um, 20 to 30 players for the round robin contest that the operators organized. I would say that's a pretty accurate number. I was only there on one night. I saw probably 25 to 30 people. And I can look at the gameplay and we see that 20 to 30 is a pretty consistent number in a lot of these locations. And again, this is repeat business that they see week after week as a result. So you heard me mention beta earlier. We actually just kicked off a beta test of our new hardware as well as a few subtle software changes that we're working on. What you're looking at here on top is a picture of our legacy hardware. This is what's currently in circulation today. If you've got our trivia game or you've seen our trivia game currently, that box should be familiar to you. The box below it is what the new hardware is going to look like. Both are manufactured by Giada. The bottom box is known as a DK310. It is a smaller box. It is a square as opposed to a rectangle. It is a little bit lighter. It addresses, frankly, the main issue that we've heard for quite a while now, and that's a heating issue. The box up top, the current legacy hardware, has a tendency to get very, very warm when in poor circulation areas. The new hardware, the box below, has a better processor and a fan built into it as well. I have a unit sitting right next to me here that's been running for probably a week now, and it is still cool to the touch. We're also testing out Wi-Fi capability in our beta test. The bottom box, the new hardware, does have a Wi-Fi capability. What we've heard is that not all locations are laid out in a manner that makes it easy to run very long HDMI or Cat5 cables without incurring a very large expense. So we're testing out exactly how the Wi-Fi might work on these boxes. I will caveat that by saying that I will always recommend a wired Cat5 connection. The Wi-Fi is only going to be as good as the strength and quality of the internet signal in the bar. And we all know sometimes those can be fairly unreliable. So we are certainly going to see how the Wi-Fi works. We're confident that it'll certainly be an option, but again, a wired connection is always going to be recommended. If you think you need Wi-Fi in a location, or you know of a location that right now is just not a good fit for trivia without the Wi-Fi, you can let us know in the Q&A box, and I'd be happy to follow up and see how maybe we can help test that out for you. This fall, we will be swapping out all of the legacy hardware for the new hardware at no charge. AMI is going to incur all costs associated with that. So you'll be getting, for however many number of legacy units you've got up top, we'll be sending you a unit on the bottom to replace that. If you were to pre-order a box or a number of boxes today, those would probably ship out in October. One other thing I wanted to mention, it's the bottom bullet here on this slide, is that every jukebox in the field today will soon have the trivia software in it. That'll happen next year. What that essentially means is there won't be any more need for either one of these boxes. There won't be any more need for trivia hardware. You would just need to activate a subscription if you already have one of our jukeboxes. So how can trivia help you? Here's what we know, just based on some research we've done and conversations that we have just about every day with operators and location owners and players. Trivia has always been a great way to keep people into a bar, or get people into a bar on a quiet night, during a period of time when maybe otherwise there wouldn't be a whole lot of traffic. We know that Tuesday and Wednesday nights are very, very popular trivia nights. We know that these are the perfect nights to have special events, to schedule trivia nights, to set up tournaments, because we know that otherwise bars, frankly, just are not very busy. We know there's not much overlap between trivia time and jukebox time. And even if there was, our game, as I mentioned earlier, has no sound, so there is no interference. But we know that jukeboxes are played certainly more in the evenings and on weekends. Trivia does not get a tremendous amount of play on weekend evenings. That's time for the lights to be turned down low and for the music to be loud and for people to be playing their music. We know that when people are in a bar playing trivia, they also play music. We have plenty of data that shows us this. And as I mentioned earlier, when these people live in the same app, when they're playing trivia in the same app that they would select their music on, that number has nowhere to go but up. We talk to hundreds and hundreds of players who tell us that they never like to leave a trivia game unfinished. They always want to order one more drink and just finish out this game and see how they did. Did they beat their friend's score? Did they beat the bartender's score? Did they beat their score from last time? We also know that people don't come in and play alone. They come in and play with friends. They meet friends there. It is a social activity. And finally, we know that hosted trivia nights are not necessarily a threat to this trivia game. In fact, nearly 4 out of 5 of our current subscribers still have a hosted trivia night 1 night a week in addition to our game. That's because we know that there are times of day when it's just not optimal and just frankly a little awkward to have somebody on a microphone reading out questions to everybody. Lunchtime, happy hour. These are times when people want to be social without having to talk over, frankly, someone else who's talking. These are the windows when our game sees the most play. And that said, a hosted trivia night is definitely a different experience. We understand that just as our game is not necessarily the right fit for every type of venue, a hosted trivia game is also not always the best fit. Sometimes you want trivia, but you don't necessarily want some of the pieces that come along with it. And therefore, our game is definitely a nice alternative. So, what does this cost? I'm sure you guys have been wondering that for a few minutes now. The hardware cost will be $250. If you currently have any of our legacy hardware or you've had our game for a while, you know that this is cheaper than what hardware costs today. If you pre-order today, we will drop that cost by $50. So a pre-order today would be just a $200 per unit cost for the hardware. The monthly subscription will be $99. Uh, Again, if you pre-order today, the cost will be $81.95 a month for the first year if you pre-order today. And apologies for not having that on the slide. Most of our current operators who have our game charge their locations a minimum of $150 to $200 a month. So the more subscriptions you have, obviously, the more you'll earn. This is revenue that doesn't require you to go to the location and empty a cash box. It's very easy. And again, just a reminder, we will be giving away one of these units for free at the end of the webinar. If you're interested in pre-ordering, there will be a link. There'll be a survey at the end of the webinar, and there'll be a link that'll help you place that order. And again, just want to reiterate that if you do currently have the legacy hardware, you will get the new hardware for free later on this year, and that'll happen at no charge to you. So we know there are a handful of trivia options out there currently. We have done our homework. So we do know a little bit about them. And here's some of the things that I feel like are important to share as it relates to some of these competitor options. Some of these options have monthly fees that are 6 to 7 times ours. I've heard as much as $1,000 a month. With costs that high, it is very, very hard to see a return on investment. There's also quite a bit more install needed in some of these competitor options. As I mentioned earlier, I would barely call what we required install. It's closer to setting up a DVD player at home than it is installing anything. Some competitors require you to mount equipment to the walls in the venues. We know that wall space can be hard to come by. We know that wall space is definitely a premium in some venues. There are competitors that give out tablets. These tablets get dirty, they break, people steal them. Part of what you're paying for with some of these high costs is a baked in tablet warranty cost. So maybe you get a free tablet mailed to you if somebody steals one or if one of them breaks. But the reason why you're probably getting that tablet mailed to you for free is because of how much you're paying month over month, and that cost is being covered in that monthly fee. Hardware aside, other games are just not as visually appealing as ours. Other games essentially give you no flexibility over really anything. I know that there are a couple of free trivia alternatives out there as well. Those services don't let you pick categories. They don't even let you dictate when games come on. Games just come on when they come on. But there are no categories. You're just answering whatever questions are up there. Those games do not look as good as ours. They don't look and feel as good as ours. The gameplay is different. And frankly, our venue ads and our ad manager tool that lets you create venue ads, I think those ads are second to none in the space in terms of how those ads look and feel. So we're winding down here. As you can see, there's a lot happening over here on the trivia side, and really there's a lot happening across AMI in general. Some things that are coming soon. We've got a new logo coming down the pike. Uh, with that logo is going to come a new combined app that we've talked about a little bit. When that happens, there will be new marketing and promotional materials. I know have heard from quite a few of you about stickers and signs and table tents and things like that. Uh, those will all look and feel different, and there'll be plenty of those to be had once we've rolled out some of these changes. We're working on a lot in the trivia space. As I mentioned, I'm the company's first trivia specific hire. I only work on trivia. So we've got a lot that we're working on. The roadmap, frankly, gets longer and longer every day. I am really excited about some of the things that we're working on. Uh, I love to hear from you guys. I've heard from a lot of you. I've met a lot of venue owners and managers and players. I've been doing a little bit of traveling around. If you have any questions, comments, feedback at all on trivia, things that you've heard that people would like to see, features, categories, any of that stuff, my door, my virtual door, or my phone, it's always open. I'd love to hear from you guys. Um, and with that, I will open it up to some questions. My colleague Jeff is going to help me out. And thank you guys. Thank you guys for listening. And then I will announce. By the way, I will announce the winner of the free trivia unit once we get through the questions.
All right. Let's take a look here. Somebody wants to know how much does it cost to play AMI Trivia?
That is a fantastic question, and apologies for leaving that out. It costs nothing to play AMI Trivia. The app is free to download. The app is free to join, and that will never change.
And then how do you join a game that's already in progress?
So what'll happen in that case is you would once you've downloaded the app and picked your username, you will and again, this is a good question because I should have shown this on a screen as well. The app will show you all the locations in your close proximity that are playing the game. Once you select the venue that you're in, it'll say, you know, joining a game. And if that game is already in progress, it would just drop you right in on the next question. So in that case, obviously, if you join on question 10, you're probably not going to win that game. But you would be able to play and answer the last two remaining questions. And again, a new game is going to start in just about 3 minutes and change. So you would have a new game starting very soon.
Somebody asks, will we be able to choose a specific category for a scheduled tournament?
So yes, that is something that is on the roadmap. Again, these are things that will happen likely next year. But when you set up a tournament, you would be able to dictate that you want to set up a 90s tournament or a college football tournament or food and beverage tournament or whatever you're selecting. You'd also be able to select that you want the first hour of your tournament to be movies and the second hour to be music, things like that. So those things are on the roadmap for sure. Those are things that'll happen next year.
And something I'll add to that is, if you set up a tournament today, you'll be able to flip through our schedules that we already have set up and likely be able to find a slot that matches kind of what you're looking for as well.
Yeah, and one thing to add on to Jeff's add-on, if you've got some kind of big special event that you're really excited about that you think is going to be really heavily attended, or it's a big deal, or it's a private event, or things like that, and it's important that a tournament be a certain category. Uh, we might be able to, with enough notice. Let me caveat by saying we would need a little bit of notice. We might be able to accommodate that on a case by case basis. So that's something that you can certainly reach out to, and we can discuss that as well.
Sorry, just flipping through some of the questions here. Somebody wants to know what internet speed is required. I don't know if we have an answer to that, but they have some locations um, with an opt connect as the only internet source.
Yeah, I don't have a specific answer to that. I do know that I've seen the game work okay with a fairly slow connection. Um, Certainly, the better experience, the faster the internet, the better experience.
So I actually can answer that, Josh, if you don't
Oh,
mind me
great.
jumping in,
And
because
this is Jill, my colleague Jill, by the way.
hello, I happened to check with one of our colleagues because I saw the question come in. So we don't actually have a high-speed internet requirement. As Josh mentioned, the higher the better. But our game does use very little data. And just to let you know that we've been testing it running on a game on 4G cellular modems in a house. So we've been running it on a pretty low requirement.
Thanks, Jill.
Mhm.
I know you already touched on this a bit, but just to make sure everybody's aware, somebody wants to know the cost per unit and the monthly expenses. I don't know if you want to pull that slide back up.
Sure. Uh, let's see if I can figure out how to do that easily. Here we go.
Sorry.
Yep. Yeah,
Um,
so 250 bucks for the hardware. If you pre-order today, we're gonna knock $50 off of that. The monthly subscription will be $99 a month. And if you were to pre-order a couple boxes today for however many boxes you order, when those are set up and ready to go, 81.95 a month for the first year with that pre-order.
Alrighty. Somebody has some units from the 2013 era and they would like to know, um, will they be updated?
Uh, that's a great question that I will certainly first, well, congratulations and thank you for being a a user for way back in 2013. We will make a note of that and follow up on that one.
Yeah, if you do have an active subscription on that device, we should update that for free.
Thank you, Kapil.
And to be clear, that would be replacing that unit, not updating the software on that unit, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Somebody asks, as an operator, how do they make profit?
So the way you make good question. It's sort of there's one sort of primary way, which is to mark up the subscription price. I mentioned. Let me jump back to that slide. Uh, oh, I didn't put it on the slide. I just had it in my notes. Um, Most operators charge their locations a minimum of $150 a month, upwards of $200 a month. To be totally frank, I know a couple of operators who charge even a little bit more than that. That's sort of a decision that you'll have to make based on a number of different factors in your relationship with the locations. So right off the bat, you're earning profit on the subscription fee every month. The other way you earn profit is sort of indirectly by having people in the location. And if they've got an AMI jukebox, then you would certainly earn revenue from the jukebox because we know that people who play trivia also play music in the jukebox. And trivia is a way to get people into the venue on a night when maybe they otherwise wouldn't be there.
So I want to add to that. If you look at some of the trivia high days, they are like weekdays and Tuesday, Wednesdays, especially. So if you have the same app where you can select your music videos, and you now are uh, ready to go play trivia, there are a lot more people who are going to download this app and go through the account creation process and play trivia. And at that point, uh, you are one step away from making a music purchase. And we have breaks where we'll incentivize patrons to do that. So I think uh, the upside for the operator is an increase in music and music videos on slow days, as well as increased participation from overall players on all days. Um, because now you have a TV, you should also be able to do music videos when trivia is not running. So I just see a big upsell for operators once you have one app experience across music videos, trivia, and arcade.
Thanks, Kapil, for the additional context.
Max amount of players per game at one location.
So this is another good question. It's quite a few. The way the standings work on the screen, and given the gameplay, uh, we can only scroll so fast and show so many names up on the screen at a time before we move into the next question. So uh, certainly, 20 is where you're going to have everyone in the bar seeing their name and their score on the screen. We've certainly had over 30, 40 players before. I don't know if Jeff, you happen to know the exact number.
No, I don't know that number off the top of my head. Sorry. It's a lot.
Yeah, I
Somebody,
think it's well over 30 or 40, but you're only, if you're in 29th place and you're playing the game, you would know you were playing the game, but no one on the screen no one looking at the screen would necessarily see your name.
And just to add to that, there isn't a limit. So there is no technical limit on the amount that can be played. It's
Okay.
just a limit on what's displayed on the leaderboard.
Right.
somebody's asking if they need a box at every location.
Every location where you want to have the trivia game being played, yes. So you could certainly you could certainly have multiple locations in your network playing trivia, but you couldn't have a box in one location and have people playing that game in a different location. One thing I will add, and that's actually a good segue to something I just want to add on from earlier. In a scenario where you decide that you want to have multiple boxes in a venue because you'd rather go that route than have to run long HDMI and Cat5 cables, you would have to purchase multiple boxes. So you would pay the upfront hardware cost, but that would still qualify as just one monthly subscription. You would only pay one subscription, even if you had multiple boxes.
Somebody's asking if an AMI jukebox is required.
It is not required, but we'd love for you to have an AMI jukebox in there as well. And I say that with a big smile on my face.
Sorry, reading through some of these here. Will older units be discontinued or knocked offline?
So there will be a point in the future where older units will not function. Certainly in the short term, as we make changes to the software and add in some new features, those updates will only happen on the new hardware. As an example, the new 60s game that we're rolling out, that would be something you would only play on the new hardware. We are going to send you the new hardware for free. So we strongly encourage you to use it. There's not really a whole lot of reason to not swap it out. The new hardware, in addition to not being able to get some of the software updates, the new hardware is just frankly better. The old hardware will cease to exist at some point. And one other thing I just wanted to clarify on from earlier is that you have to have an active subscription in order for us to swap out the hardware. So if you choose if you've got some old boxes, doesn't really matter how old the boxes are. As long as you've got an active subscription, you'll get the hardware for free, the new hardware for free.
And somebody's asking what happens with the hardware we purchase now, the box, when trivia becomes available on the jukebox?
That's a great question.
So
Sorry.
yeah. So you have a spare box, but yeah, there is just one subscription. The way I see this is um, uh, right now, if you have any location that wants trivia, I you purchase this box and they are better off with a dedicated trivia location. And in the future, you have the option of having a jukebox and a box, or if you get another inquiry, you can repurpose that box elsewhere and connect the jukebox to play trivia. So you just have flexibility, but the subscription cost is tied to the location and stays the same.
Thank you.
This one I might actually answer, but somebody wants to know, will the Tap TV app be merged with the AMI Music app, or will users need to download the AMI Music app once the new one is released? And I'll just say that they will need to get the new app once that's done and updated at some point, but we're looking at ways to be able to easily transfer people over to um, the new app once that's ready to go. So that, if anybody opens up the old app, they should be almost redirected into the AMI Music app.
Thank you, Jeff.
Somebody's asking about what options will location staff have in AMI Copilot? Again, I can kind of touch on that one a bit. We're looking at roles and permissions and stuff like that. As of today, location staff can switch schedules, and so that will be able to continue once we get Copilot updated with all these new features. We're going to continue to look at each of the roles and see how to build that out further. So more answers in the future.
Yeah, certainly as we add some of these new features that I mentioned, additional tournament functions and some new things with the scheduling. Any conversations we have about those features would include a conversation about how to get those features in Copilot.
We have a question: can a tournament be set up with local sports team questions?
So right now we do not have that capability. I'm just going to leave it at that because I don't know when we would have that capability, and I don't want to over promise something.
All right. We've gotten to most of the questions here. I think we'll have our RSMs reach out to some of the remaining ones here because we're cutting a little short on time.
Okay. And certainly if you think of a question after the fact, feel free to contact your RSM. They could also, I'm sure if they don't have the answer, they'll put you in touch with me. But yeah. So, I know personally sometimes I think of things that I wish I'd asked after the fact. So if that happens, just certainly let us know and we'll make sure all your questions get answered. I do, before I let everyone go, want to announce the winner of the free hardware. Congratulations to Brian Collison from B&D Amusement in California. You've won one free trivia box, and your RSM will be in touch about that. If there is nothing else, Jeff, then I will go ahead and let everyone go. One final reminder that when you exit the webinar, a survey will pop up in your browser. It is extremely short. Please take a moment to fill it out. That feedback is extremely valuable to us, not only for planning future webinars and future events, but there's some trivia-specific questions in there as well that I'd love to hear your thoughts and answer on. And you'll also see a link if you wanted to have a conversation about pre-order. And certainly you could also speak with your RSMs about a pre-order as well. So with that said, thank you all for joining us. Again, my name is Josh. It was my pleasure to speak with you guys. Hopefully I will get to meet with some of you in the future as I travel around a little bit more. And we are excited about what the future holds for AMI Trivia. Thanks again. Have a good one.